Chris Sheridan's the creator of Resident Alien. I'm Matt Noble of Gold Derby, and I wanted to start off by asking you, Chris, what did you learn about humans from making Resident Alien?
Wow, that's a great question, and the first time I've ever been asked it. So kudos to you.
Oh, off to a good start.
I have learned a lot about humans from making Resident Alien. Wow, let's see what I'm trying. Now, this has really stumped me. I mean, look, I went into it knowing that the exploration of what it's like to be human is important. I think people don't think about it enough. One of the things that I've sort of felt as I've been, working on this show, because I've been studying people a lot, I try to stay hopeful with these things. And one of the things that has dawned on me is there is a lot of darkness in the world. There's a lot of people who aren't supportive of other people, but there are a lot of people out there who really are. Like one of the things that I have started to feel, and I'm trying to incorporate it in the show, is there is hope out there. Like there are a lot of people out there who are living great lives, who are full of acceptance and full of love for their fellow man. And I think, Harry's journey coming down, we're exploring, can someone who enters this world, intent on destruction, who's surrounded by humans, learn that we are redeemable as a race of people. And I think the one thing that I've learned from sort of studying people and writing this show is that I feel more hopeful about it. I feel more like there are just a lot of people out there who are taking us in the right direction. And it makes me feel better about, where we're going. And it's definitely the message that I want to have in the show, that there might be some darkness out there, but as long as we stick together, there's hope for all of us. And I do think we can pull together and do it.
What for you was sort of the most important aspect that you wanted to encapsulate in this series?
The most important aspect of this series is how important it is to accept people who are different. Harry's an outsider. I mean, he's an alien who, obviously has come down here to kill everybody. But he as easily could just be a guy who steps off a bus in a new town, who doesn't really fit in. And I think the most important thing about the show is showing how important it is to accept people, no matter who they are, no matter what they look like, no matter how different they are than you. That's the only thing that keeps us together as a society is acceptance. And it's sort of the most important thing to me about the show is embracing people who are different, embracing that person down the road, who's might seem weird or seem different or has a different religion or something like that. They may not be an alien like Harry, but embracing them as a friend might make your life a little bit better. And what I'm trying to show in the show is, even though Harry's this sort of different guy who comes in, that everyone's life is thrown out of whack because of him, but ultimately made better because of the fact that they've all embraced him as one of their own. So I think that's the most important part of this show.
What's the biggest challenge for you in writing this show?
I think the biggest challenge writing the show is time. I mean, the show takes a long time to write and produce, and finding time to really give it the time it needs to breathe, whether it's in the writing, whether it's in the production of it. That's one of the hard things. As I'm even saying that, the other hard thing is there's a lot of emotional beats in the show. Those are hard to navigate sometimes from a writing standpoint, I think, for myself and the rest of the writers, because in order to write them effectively, I think you have to sink into these characters and you have to live these moments. And there's some really happy, fun things that are going on, which are fun to write and light, but then you take a left turn and then there's some dark stuff and some sad stuff. And if you're really inhabiting these characters, as a writer, you're doing this sort of up and down where you're on top of the world, sort of laughing as you're writing. And then a minute later, you can be crying while you're writing because the character is going through something really, really sad and difficult. So sometimes the the different tones of the show and the emotional up and down is a challenge to sort of take into your heart and into your life while you're doing it.
And how do you find the balance between the tones in this show? Because it is like absurdly ridiculous at times. You know, you've got Harry pretending to be Lenny Brasco in a hospital and then talking about his planet name being or whatever. But on the other hand, it's not Mork and Mindy. It's not Third Rock from the Sun, where it's just a straight sitcom and you're just going through joke after joke after joke. So how do you find that balance between the absurdly ridiculous and the dramatic and human?
It's a great question. The way to find on this particular show, the way to find the balance between the absurdist sort of comedy and the grounded emotion is trying to ground everything, including the comedy. So let's put Harry aside for a second. All of the comedy in the show, I try to have as character comedy, as real sort of organic moments between characters, comedy coming out of conflict and stuff like that. There's no character that's just there, just telling jokes, you know, like you might have in a sitcom or something, which is fun and great. But tonally, it takes the reality out of the show because it feels broad. And unfortunately, if you take the reality out of a show like this, suddenly then the emotional moments don't feel as important either, or the stakes of Harry killing everyone are suddenly not important if the whole thing feels like a cartoon. So the key to it all is really grounding all the moments. Now, you would think that it wouldn't work with this alien who is so larger than life, but there is a way to ground those moments as well. And Harry has created this sort of world on Earth where he is sort of this man-child and he doesn't understand things and there's so much comedy that can come out of that yet still feel grounded. He can do bigger things. He can in a flashback as an alien hump a vending machine to get a bag of chips out of it. And as crazy as that sounds and as funny as it is to look at, it's real in his life because he learned it from watching a dog. So it's trying to build in reality to all the moments. And we found a really good balance. We've got great actors who can play the comedy and the grounded moments really, really well. It's finding the balance within arcs in the season. It's feeling like, you know, Sheriff Mike is feeling a little comedic, a little big, and then finding ways to ground his character, bringing in his father into the show, pulling out his backstory where it can get really emotional. It's always being conscious of those different levels and trying to balance them out. And I think there's something special about it. And Corey Reynolds himself says it's the type of show you can laugh crying or cry laughing or cry with sadness. And I think that's true. And I think that has to do with really trying hard to balance those tones and making them work together. So.
You said it's not a cartoon. Is that sort of because of all the work you've done on Family Guy? Is that hard to get out of that mindset? Or did maybe, you know, your work doing cartoons help you inform sort of the way even you can approach comedy in this show?
Yeah, I think the work I've done on cartoons did help. I mean, I was on Family Guy for 20 years. So I think it takes, if you're in that world for so long and then you're doing a drama, it's just going to bleed over, right? So it's sort of like what informs everything. It certainly informs a lot of the comedy moments. So we've got an alien riding a horse. We got, you know, an alien scooching along the ground, cleaning his ass like a dog. Like those are Family Guy type. As a matter of fact, the scooching the ass thing, I think Peter and Family Guy did that once too. So we have these cartoony moments that are, again, as I said, like still sort of live in the world of that, in the real world of that alien. I don't think the cartoon thing has gotten in the way. I'm definitely conscious of it, and not that there's anything wrong with being a cartoon. And there's some television shows that are live action that are a little cartoony, that are hysterical, that I love. But we're also trying to do really strong emotional stuff. And for me, I think that emotional stuff plays better if the whole show feels real. And if segments of the show feel too broad and unreal, it takes away the stakes from the rest of the show. So it's really, as you said before, it's trying to find that balance and make sure everything sort of lives in a grounded area. Luckily, we do have this alien where we can take advantage a little bit and heighten some of the comedy that the alien is doing, whether it's, you know, the visual stuff of the things that the actual alien does, or Alan Tudyk, who's a comic genius in this body, playing this 45-year-old man-child who's, you know, calling a 10-year-old a dink. You know, we can get away with stuff like that you couldn't have in a normal show, a 45-year-old man calling a kid an asshole or a dickhead. But in this show we do, because it's like, he's really kind of like 8 himself. He just got here, he doesn't know. So we try to take advantage of those weird things that have happened with just the logic of the show. He's new to this planet. He doesn't know what he's doing. And we have a lot of leeway there. I mean, from the pilot, he was trying to kill a kid. Typically that would pretty much end it for how much you care about your main character. But you also, in a way, look at him like a lion that got loose from a zoo. He's just, you can't blame the lion for killing a kid. It's like, it's sad, but what are you going to do? Harry's sort of on the loose and he's doing the best he can.
Yeah. What's the biggest swing you think you took on this show?
That's a great question. Up to this point, I think there's been a lot of big swings on this show. I think one of the biggest ones was in the pilot. I think having him try to kill the kid feels very natural now because we've sort of done that storyline for a while. But in a pilot episode, having the main character trying to kill a child you hope it works well, and you hope casting wise, you cast the right character or actor who can pull it off, and it works tonally with the show. But at the time, I did not. I was pretty sure it would work, but you never know until you do it. And of course, it worked really well. And it's created this sort of dynamic between Harry and Max that we've used a lot. I think I was very confident it would work, but the killing off the octopus the way we did, number 42, was a bit of a swing of the bat. I mean, I know people like the octopus. To me, it made me laugh that the thing was ragdolled by a dog and killed, and then Harry ate it. But I also know that people might not have liked that, but it made me laugh so much thinking about it. I'm like, well, we'll do it. And if people hate the show, then they hate the show, because I think it's hysterical. So I think you have to swing the bat. Look, there's 560 shows on the air now, and you got to do some stuff that, I mean, the alien humping the vending machine. I mean, I was on set with Brian Fisher, our VisFX guy from COSA, videotaping me humping a camera cart so I could get, show him how I want the hump. Like, these are just ridiculous things that you do in this job, and every one of them is like, are we kicked off the air after this? I don't know. It does remind me a lot of early days on Family Guy, when you're sort of carving this path. You don't know if it's going to be accepted, and the crazy over the top stuff that we all did on that. And it feels a little bit the same. You're in a live action world now. You're in the sci-fi universe, which doesn't always have comedy, and the show does some outlandish things. But now we've done a few things like that, and people really seem to embrace the sort of absurdist aspect of it. It gives you more confidence to push the envelope a little more, and having a little alien baby running around, like, I mean, yeah, there's been some crazy things that really throw. I mean, that was like a horror movie for part of that episode. But I think, again, there's so many shows on the air. People are just excited for something different. So I think anything that we can do to throw in the mix to make our show, feel exciting and feel different than everything else on TV, and it's sort of carved its own sort of place in that. So it gives you confidence to sort of keep doing kind of weird stuff.
What's your favorite moment from season 2?
My favorite moment from season 2, I do think sequence-wise, has to be the octopus death. Every aspect of that I just absolutely loved. I mean, we had to train this dog to shake the fake octopus, and it was all a lot of work, but just the conversations that I had with Noah Sirota, our composer, talking to him about how I wanted the score, like for when the octopus is dying in Harry's arms, and told him to, that I really wanted, the only way that was going to work to me is it was played totally straight, because it's so ridiculous. We had to just try to pretend like it was totally, we couldn't own the fact it was ridiculous. We had to pretend it was totally real and totally straight, which is the other thing about balancing this tone. So you never sort of show that it's ridiculous. You just have to play it like it's totally real. So I had Noah score it. I said, look, just picture it like a guy who lost his brother in World War II and found the soldier's body in the field, and he's holding his brother, in his arms as his brother died out. Like, what would the score for that be? That's what it needs to be for this. And then within all that, one of my favorite specific moments of the season was within this sequence where Harry was talking to the octopus, and then the octopus, we had this guy Keith, who used to do used to play first season a little bit in the alien makeup, but he also does some puppeteering. So Keith was lifted the octopus's arm up and it like stroked Harry's face, and it looked so fake, but there's something so funny to me about it. And it was so much better than if it was like a CGI, like perfectly flowy, like tentacle. It was literally clearly like a rubber tentacle lifted up by like some fishing line and just touching. And it felt like Mr. Show to me in a way. Like there was something so funny to me about that. That whole thing. And then just Alan played it so perfectly. So many aspects of it. It was Alan's ad libs, improv on the day, giving it CPR and then blowing into its butt. That was all Alan, and Alan's performance when he was eating it, where he's sort of horrified and then it tastes good. And I was like, this is great. Like the whole thing came together great. I was really happy about that.
There's so many pop culture references and things in the show, like not just sci-fi stuff, but a whole range of stuff. Is the octopus is 42? Is that a Hitchhiker's reference?
It is not. That actually was Alan's idea. I think we referenced it in the show. He was the octopus was number 42 on the menu, octopus and black bean sauce. So Harry started calling him number 42. That was actually Alan's joke. And it seems
there you go. So, yeah, but not of all the numbers in all the world.
You know what? I have to ask Alan, because honestly, maybe it's certainly possible that's where he pulled that from. But I'd have to ask him. That was his idea.
Unfortunately, I interviewed him just before you, so I
All right, we'll have to follow up.
Yeah, to wrap up, Chris, something that Harry says in the show is that human memories are not just knowledge of what has been, it contains feelings of the moment. Can you think of a particular feeling of the moment that you had from making the series?
Yeah, there was a moment. There was an incredible moment in the pilot when we were shooting that. I remember there's a scene where Asta is leaving Jimmy, and she's rushing away from his house. She's finally leaving him, and she drives away, and she stops in the tunnel, and she's screaming and crying because this is great, incredible like turning point in her life where she's finally like leaving him for the first time, and she considers maybe going back, and she suddenly sees in a rearview mirror this stag in the back, and we had established already for her that's a sort of a sign of strength, and she decides to move forward. I remember shooting that, and up to this point, I had worked on the script for 2 or 3 years, and I was so in these characters, and I've talked to Sarah Tomko about this, but she was so incredibly good in that moment, and she was so coming unglued in this car that everyone on set watching was just bawling. We're all bawling our eyes out at Video Village watching this. And I remember the feeling watching that where I felt the character passing from me to her. Like I felt in this moment that I had lived inside this character for so long, and just out of the sheer sort of incredible talent that she has as an actor and her ability to pull off that scene, I remember the feeling very, very specifically in that moment that Asta was hers now, and felt very like confident and comfortable passing her along now and giving her away. You know what I mean? I'd never ever had that feeling before. And since then I've had that feeling in one way or another with all the other actors who are so incredible as well. And I've been able to pass them all off to them to take ownership of. But that was the first time it happened. And I remember that. And it was an incredibly powerful moment.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for spending time with us today. People watching this interview can go to goldderby.com to make your award predictions and watch other interviews with award contenders like Alan from Resident Alien. And also, all the best of luck with the upcoming Emmy Awards, Chris.
Thank you. We're looking forward to it.